This is the PL-89 Gematriatic Quantum Thought Calendar for Sunday, it's October 5th, right? Wow, time is flying so fast. Sunday, October 5th, 2025. And it is the 13th day of Tishrei, Yom Rishon, first day of the week, the parsha of the 13th day of Tishrei, 5786, the new year. We just started, and the parsha is Vizot HaBaracha. The Daf Yomi is page 21 of Zevachim, which in truth is page 20 because it starts at page 2. The page number is 21, but the actual page is the 20th page. And that comports with box number 20. Box number 20. This 20 right here, I'm basically going off the same thing yesterday. Yesterday was page number 20, and I use this box. And now I'm saying the same thing about the fact that it's the 20th page. So that's the beauty of these sliding boxes, that you can use the box for what you need it for if there's some connection to it. Like yesterday, it was page number 20, but today it's the fact that it's the 20th page. It's like splitting hairs, like fine details. And so that's the 13th of Tishrei, which is today. It's also the third box number 32. And box 32 is for October the 5th. And I'm always looking for creative ways of how to use this calendar through Gematria, but sometimes the word Gematria can be misunderstood, or let's put it this way, Gematria has many different uses. It's basically using numbers for different things. It's numerical values, that's a very big part of what it is, but it's also just numbers as identifiers, like for me, an address or license plate number or a phone number or a credit card number, they're all Gematrias because they're all numbers that identify things. And if you see, let's say, a price on a receipt, that can equal a certain number, a certain word in the Torah, and you needed to know that word just in that circumstance. So that's all Gematria for me. And so that's what it means, the Gematriac Thought Calendar. This takes in all those things, specifically financial things, as that's what it's made for the financial world. But for everything really. But a new idea came as a creative way, an effective way to understand the Bible through this calendar, and that would be and to understand the meaning of a number. Think about any number, 7, let's say. When you first hear 7, I mean, if you're reading the Bible, it's going to come up a lot. You have a general understanding of what that number is because you know a lot of things that it is. It's a very famous number in the Bible. It's very well known. 7 days of creation, well, it's 6 days, and then Sabbath, the Sabbaths, the sabbatical years, the Jubilees, 7 sprinkling the blood 7 times in the temple or tabernacle, or so many different things that are 7. And you have the patriarchs and the matriarchs, 3 patriarchs and 4 matriarchs at 7, and then you have the 7 so-called the 7 shepherds of Israel, like the 7. They're patriarchs, but they're not actually. It's like Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, Aaron, Joseph, David. So that's 7. Also, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, Aaron, Joseph, David. Right. Anyway, I found a creative way to use this thing. When you're seeing, let's say today is October 5th, right? So then we're in box number 32. By the way, 32 connects to Hazinu, which we just read yesterday, but actually I finished it today. It's Deuteronomy 32. It coincides with yesterday. And I finished it today, so personally it's relevant. But 32 has 52 verses, and if you add the lunar and the solar together, 20 and 32 is 52. That's 52 verses. And so, but there's a creative way to do this. There's a creative way to do this. If you look at 32, what do you think right away? If you learned a little bit of the book of Yetzirah, you might think about this 32 paths of wisdom. The 32, you might think about 32 Deuteronomy 32, we just have that. But I don't know if that's so well known. But are there 32 teeth? I'm not sure. But you might think about that, if there are. But how do you know more about 32 by just looking at the number 32? So the thought would be is, what if you were to say, what does Genesis 32 talk about? Do you know off the top of your head? What does Exodus 32 talk about? How about Numbers 32? There is no Leviticus 32. Leviticus goes up to, I think, either 26 or 27, one of those two. So, Deuteronomy 32, well, we just mentioned it. So, what if you were to see all of those chapters and you were able to get a scan and see maybe there's connections between those chapters? Is there a reason that, and so maybe that can be a way of understanding 32, and then do that throughout the whole Bible, chapter 32 of every single book, if there is, and being able to reference that way, and using the calendar to do it. So I won't do it's probably only once in a while. It's kind of time consuming and it's difficult to do it every single day, but I might do it every now and then and pick up the pace until every number from 1 to 40 is completed. And then there can be a good understanding in that way. So let's just start with, since it's lunar dominance 20. So do you know how Genesis 20? What is Genesis 20 about? Let's see. In Genesis chapter 20, Abraham lies about Sarah being his sister. King Avimelech of Gerar takes her, but God intervenes in a dream, warning Avimelech that he will die if he touches her. Avimelech returns Sarah, and after Abraham prays for the king's household, God heals their barrenness, allowing them to have children again. This chapter repeats a similar deception Abraham used in Egypt, but this time God's direct warning to Avimelech protects Sarah and highlights Abraham's continued fear. Okay, that is Genesis 20. What about Exodus 20? What does Exodus 20 talk about? Well, we'll find out right now. Exodus 20 contains God's 10 Commandments given to the Israelites on Mount Sinai. After their escape of slavery from Egypt, God first established his authority as the deliverer of the Israelites before presenting the commands, which are divided into two groups. The first relate to God, and the second relate to man. To love of God and to 5 and 5. They say it differently here, but the way I learned it was that it's 5 and 5. That honoring one's parents is between man and God, not between man and man. So that's Exodus 20. Is there any connection between that and Sarah and Abraham and being his sister? It's hard to make a connection, but they're both connected by the fact that they're both 20. What about Leviticus chapter 20? Okay, so ideally, when you look at the PL-89 calendar, you're supposed to see all these things in one shot. And then you can see Leviticus 20 provides penalties or case law for various offenses previously mentioned in the book of Leviticus, focusing on acts of idolatry, sexual sins, and other violations of God's holiness, and mandates the death penalty for such transgressions. The chapter begins by outlining strict punishments for sacrificing children to Moloch and consulting mediums or necromancers. Then it lists death penalties or other severe consequences for forbidden sexual relationships such as incest and adultery. Okay? Adultery. Okay, that's Leviticus 20. Just try to remember each one of these things. I'm going to try to also. All right, what about Numbers chapter 20? Numbers chapter 20 recounts the death of Miriam and Aaron. The Israelites complained about lack of water and Moses' obedience in striking the rock instead of speaking to it to provide water. As a consequence, Moses and Aaron are barred from entering the promised land, and Aaron dies on Mount Hor after being stripped of his priestly garments, which are then given to his son Eleazar. The chapter also details Edom's refusal to grant Israel passage to their territory, highlighting a significant turning point as Israel nears the end of its wilderness journey. Okay? And finally, Deuteronomy chapter 20. Deuteronomy 20. Deuteronomy 20 provides laws for Israelite warfare, emphasizing reliance on God, differentiating between distant enemies and abominable Canaanite nations, and establishing rules for defending peace or engaging in combat, including exempting fearful or recently engaged individuals and preserving food-bearing trees during sieges. The chapter instructs on the distinction between those who can go home and those who must fight, and details on how to treat conquered populations, which can vary based on the city's response to Israel's terms of peace. Okay, so what I did was I just took let's say these were like 5 pieces of meat. It's like a shish kebab, or maybe these are 5 different things: vegetable, meat, something else. I think just vegetables, meat, right? And shish kebab them, right? All through 20. Zero. Now they're all stringed up together. And do you remember? I'm not sure I would, if I didn't have it in front of me. But what does Genesis 20 have to do with Exodus 20, have to do with Leviticus 20, have to do with Numbers 20, have to do with Deuteronomy 20? Well, I can see 3 of them that really are connected. Number 1, Genesis 20 talks about Abraham and Sarah and Avimelech taking her. She's a married woman, and he lies or just maybe bends the truth, even though Sarah might have been technically Abraham's sister in some way. But so you're dealing with a married woman, and in Exodus 20 it talks about don't have adultery, no adultery. I'm trying to find some connection here. So there's a connection, no adultery. And let's see, Leviticus 20 talks about the penalties for various adultery things. Okay? Or just sexual sins. And so then we come to Numbers 20, which talks about Aaron and Miriam. So it's a brother and a sister. There's nothing really sexual being talked of here, but there was a sin involved in Moses hitting the rock. That's not really connected to any sexual sin. But you do have a brother and a sister, Miriam and Aaron, and it recounts their death. And then finally, Deuteronomy 20 is about warfare, and it talks it so. And in warfare, there are rules, and in this warfare, I'm just kind of skipping ahead, but in 21 it talks about the beautiful woman who you need to go through certain procedures to take this woman. So wants to take them as a wife. So it's not exactly, but I'm just seeing a connection. But there could be more connections if you know the whole parsha by heart. And if you know all these parshas, all the ideas in each parsha, and then how this should work is when I see box 20, I go click, I'm on 20, and I see all these concepts in front of me right away. I'm saying boom, 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 and all these ideas came in front of me just by saying 20. That's would be a pretty advanced way of using this calculator, I think. So I'm like 20, 32, okay, I'm like 52, Song of Moses, 52 verses, chapter 32, I'm connecting here and there. That's okay. That was just 20. Now how about 32? If you're still with me here. Genesis, so box number 32 represents the October 5th. So what does Genesis 32 talk about? We're going to say it in a moment. Genesis chapter 32 describes Jacob's fear in preparation to meet his brother Esau, whom he had deceived, but also recounts his pivotal encounter with a divine being, resulting in his name being changed to Israel, the naming of the place Peniel, face of God. After seeing God's angel at Machanaim, Jacob divides his family to protect them from Esau and sends a generous gift. At night he wrestles with a divine being, is given a new name, Israel. He struggles with God and permanently marked by a hip injury. Okay, that's 32, Genesis 32. What about Exodus 32? Does that connect anything to do with Exodus 32? Let's see. What does Exodus 32 say? Exodus 32 describes an incident of the golden calf. Interesting. Where the Israelites impatient for Moses' return to Mount Sinai, demand Aaron make them a god. Aaron crafts a golden calf, which the people worship, leading God to threaten their destruction. Moses intercedes, smashes the tablets of the law in anger, destroys the calf, and punishes 3,000 unrepentant Israelites. After further intercession from Moses, God relents, sending a plague, but continuing to lead them with his angel. With his angel. Is this angel connected to the angel in Genesis? Genesis 32, Exodus 32, angel. Okay, I see a connection there already. There is no Leviticus 32. Doesn't exist. Goes up to either 27, I think 27. So, what about Numbers 32? Numbers 32 describes the tribes of Reuben and Gad asking Moses to settle in the fertile land east of the Jordan to request a request that initially angers Moses. However, they make a compromise. The fighting men will cross the Jordan to help conquer Canaan and only return their families east of the river after the conquest is complete. Moses grants their request, conditioning it on the solemn promise to participate fully in the war, ensuring the commitment to collective mission. The chapter highlights the themes of collective responsibility, the dangers of complacency, and the importance of keeping one's word to God and the community. Okay? I don't see how that really directly connects with Genesis 32 and Exodus 32. Not really, but okay, let's continue. Deuteronomy 32 is what we just talked about, the Song of Moses. And the Song of Moses, basically speaking, Song of Moses is a poetic lament and prophecy given by God to Moses to serve as a witness for the Israelites, highlighting their rebellion against God despite his perfect love and faithfulness. The song details God's nurturing of Israel, their subsequent unfaithfulness and idolatry, and the resulting divine judgment and scattering. However, it also contains the promise of God's ultimate vengeance and vindication of his people, emphasizing that his justice and compassion will ultimately prevail, bringing hope and repentance and restoration. So I'm not saying, again, if you would know each of these chapters backwards and forwards, you might see many more, certainly would see many more connections. But this is just a general overview. So this is one way, and I started with today. I'm not saying I'll do this every day, but every now and then it might be a good idea to do this method where you look at a number and you're able to see all the chapters in this particular book or this group of books